Hey everybody, Yahya here, and in this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to make a simple automation that will save you time in writing Jira tickets. Let's go. This is the automation that we are going to be creating. So as I said, this is very simple. It contains 3 nodes. The first node will be to watch for new rows in our Google Sheet. From there, when certain conditions are met, when this automation runs, it will send that content with a prompt to an LLM of our choice. That's step 2. From there, our output will go into another column into our sheet, and we will have completed the automation without even having to write the ticket. In our previous video, we went through how to use several tools to help you in the discovery and user research processes get to a point where you can end up with a pitch document that is full of research, market sizing, insights from user personas, and user interviews, and so on. And we want to continue using our fitness tracking application in this video as well. The first thing that we want to do is we want to create our Google Sheet. Make sure that you name it as well as name the individual sheet, because we are going to use that later in Make. We want 3 columns in our sheet: description, start AI, and AI output. Description is where we are going to input our user's problem or some simple requirements, and it does not have to be structured language. In this column, we are going to input start, because we're going to use that word as a trigger to start the request. And then this is going to hold the output that comes from the LLM. Let's create the first node of our automation. So what we're going to do is click this plus, and we are going to select Google Sheets. And then we are going to select Watch New Rows. Here we need to identify our Google Sheet. So let's keep this on Search by Path. We're going to look in My Drive, and let's type in the name of our sheet, Ticket Automation. And select the sheet name Tickets. Yes, our table contains headers, so we leave that. And then let's narrow it down to our 3 columns up to C1. And then we will leave the limit of max number of results to be worked with during one execution cycle at 2. And save. And then we need to choose where to start and select all. Save. And now we've set up our first node. For the second step, we are going to need an API key. Now you can use any LLM you want. I am going to show you how to do this for free using OpenRouter. So what you want to do is you want to go to OpenRouter.ai, create an account that's free. You're going to go to models, and there are a number of free models. For our example, we're going to be using DeepSeek R10528. It's free. Now, if you go in there and you go to API, you'll be able to create an API key here. I've already created mine. And down here, you can find what we're going to be adding into the request content for our second step. All right, so you're going to want to copy and paste that. Okay, now we are ready to set up node 2. Let's add another module. And you want to type in make a request. We'll select this one. All right, and we need to fill out all of the required fields. And so let's walk through this. The first thing that we need to do is specify the URL. And so since we are using OpenRouter, we need to specify their URL for chat completions. Then we are going to change the method to post. Now we need to add headers. The first header is content type, and the value application JSON. We need to add another header for our authorization. And this is where you are going to paste your API key. Okay, I have pasted my API key. Let's now go down to body type, and we are going to choose raw. And then we are going to choose the content type as JSON. This is where it gets interesting. The request content field is where we are going to tell it which model to use and add our prompt to the content. So here I've already created it, and you can see our model that we've chosen, DeepSeek R1 free. And in my prompt, I have defined the role as an expert product manager, and its objective is to use this context and input to generate a Jira ticket. The context starts here, and it describes all of the modules of the app, all the way up to this point where it says generate. And then generate is followed by a set of instructions to generate a concise descriptive title, followed by a detailed ticket body with the exact structure below: problem, solution, acceptance criteria. And then another instruction about how to output in what format. And this part is going to break it up so we don't get a large blob of text. I'm going to copy this, and then we are going to paste it in our request content field. All right. Now here, what we want to do is specify the input from our sheet, and that is coming from the description column. Lastly, we want to ensure that we've checked yes for parse response and save. Now we've set up our second node. For this to work like we want it to, we need to set up a filter. So click on this wrench icon, click set up a filter. We can call it condition A. And here we want to select our start AI column, and we want it to equal to a value of start. So when this value is in that column, this is one of the conditions for this to start. but we also want to ensure that we're not overwriting already output data from the LLM. So we also want to specify that in our output column, it's empty. So we will leave this field empty. We'll press save. So now we should be able to test these two nodes and to see if it will detect the new row and it will send that input to our LLM. So now we're back in our sheet and we want to conduct a test. So let's write a brief description of a pain point. Users can't export individual training data to CSV. And then we want this to actually trigger, so we need to have start in this column. All right, now coming back to make, let's just make sure that we are starting the correct starting point. So we can always right click here and double check. And so we need to make sure that this says all. So we'll say save. And now we can run it on demand and see if it works. So let's run once. And this is a good sign. This is indicating that the row was detected, the filter worked and set up our trigger, and now the request is being processed and we should have some output. And there we go. So if we click on this bubble, we will be able to see how it worked. So let's first look at the request content to ensure that our input was appended to our prompt. And it was at the endpoint section, users can't export individual training data to CSV. And then if we go to our output data and we go down, go to choices and we go to +1 and we click on message and then content, boom, we have in the format that we specified our Jira ticket. Okay, so now that we've tested and seen that the first two nodes are working as expected, we can finish our automation by adding our third node and getting our output back into the sheet. So what we're going to do is add another module. I'm going to select Google Sheets and update a row. And just as we did before, we want to select our spreadsheet. And then here in this field for row number, we are going to select row number. We leave that as yes. Table contains headers. Now we're going to go down to the values section and we're going to AI output, which matches our output column in our sheet. We're going to click that field and we can select the output from the make a request section here. And so we're going to find data, and then we're going to find choices, click down, message, and then we want to select content. Okay, there we go. And that's it. That's all of the content that we want to add to our sheet. So we're going to save that. Okay, so now we've added and set up our third node. So this should be complete. And now it should take that output from the LLM and put it into our Google Sheet. Let's give it a test. Let's double check again. There's one point that I've found that tends to reset itself, and that is choosing where to start. So it's always a good idea to double check that it's starting at the correct place. And given that this is an on-demand workflow, you don't necessarily have to have it run on an interval. That's not going to be a big deal. So now let's run this. First node worked. Trigger worked to send the request. Now that request is processing. And that was successful, and it looks like it has updated our row in our sheet. So let's go take a look. And there it is. And we have it in the format that we want. It's added the thinking because R1 is a reasoning model. We can ensure that this does not get included, but it's done what we wanted. All three steps have worked. Now we could extend this even further by eliminating the manual step of copying and pasting the output into a Jira ticket, and then add to this automation that step as well. I would say though that given we're not in the habit of just taking what the LLM outputs and using it, we need to review it. There needs to be an intermediate step so that we can make our own amendments, and that could be within the sheet. We may want to add a column for output human, for example, where we take this output, amend it so if there's anything extra that we don't need, or if there's something missing that we need to add, we can do that. And then that final output that has been edited by us, so we are the human in the loop, then we can take that and create our automation from that so that the final output is exactly as we want it, and a Jira ticket is created automatically. So to summarize our simple Jira ticket automation, what we've done is connected a Google Sheet where we enter some basic inputs. We've connected that sheet to an LLM for free using OpenRouter and a free API key for DeepSeek R1. We've connected that with a trigger to check for specific conditions so that once we have our input, it needs a condition to start with a keyword. And so once that's triggered, it's sent to the LLM to process with our prompt that we have put into the response content in our request. And that's where we specifically defined the role of the LLM, and we've given it context and also instructions on the format of the output that we want. And then finally, in the third step, it takes that output, pastes it into a third column, where from there we can choose to either refine it further, which you should, and then either manually create a Jira ticket using that output, or if you want to extend this, you can extend it to create a Jira ticket for you using Atlassian's API. So I hope you found this useful. Like, subscribe, share, and all of that good stuff. And thank you.